All right, good Thursday morning to you. Welcome to PT Breakfast Club. I'm Jimmy McKay. Before we bring in my co-host, I want to set you up for what we're going to learn and talk about and argue about, then come to an agreement and then disagree and agree to disagree today. Association membership. I think the question is, what business are they actually in? We're going to go into an interaction we saw on the interwebs between an association and a non-member. I like to call them potential members. You don't have patients and non-patients, you have patients and potential patients. And the non-member got angry. We'll set up what was it good business or a missed opportunity? You get to kind of help us decide. And in the back half of the show, the B block, we get to talk about, I think, signage, how to build a brand, how are we communicating this thing that we provide, this service as physical therapists. I don't think we provide a product necessarily all the time. I think we provide a service. So that is the second half of the show. So without further ado, and everybody knows how much I love ado, let's start the show. And there we go. Good Thursday morning to you. I'm Jimmy McKay. That is Tony Maritato. He's this way. And all the way over there is Dave Kittle. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm 2 espressos deep. Just a warning. Just a warning label. This is like the warning label on the McDonald's coffee. Hot. 2 espressos deep. And I was talking with a friend of the show, Sky Donovan, who was she hates when I say this. She was my professor. Like, we're friends now. And just pinging ideas off each other, and I just could not write stuff down fast enough. And I think you should always have somebody in your life, or multiple somebodies that are. I mean, she's a physical therapist professor, but also she's an academic, so it's different. So I'll bring something up, and she's like, "Oh, that's kind of like what we do it here." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" So she's similar but different, and you just get these cool ideas. So ideas coming. You should have someone like that in your life. Do you guys have someone like that in your life? I mean, I feel like we're like that in each other's lives.
I have Tony Maritato.
And I've got Dave Kittle and Jimmy McKay. No, but I do. Yeah, I've got people like that. And I've got real people, and I've got people on YouTube. You know, there are YouTubers that I go to spark ideas and kind of get the juices flowing so that I can think better. I agree. You need to have that.
It's this, we complain a lot, and it's not just us, man. You go to any other industry and they're like, we're stuck in a silo. And I'm like, right, because you keep asking people who are just like you. Like, diversity, equity, and inclusion wasn't just a thing to do. It was like, that actually improves thought. Did you ever hear the story? 3M, that company that made Scotch tape?
Yeah.
Big deal. Yeah. I mean, Scotch tape, one of the biggest technological advance, and Post-it notes, one of the biggest technological advance. Post-it notes, big one. They had this, and I'm pretty sure it's them. Someone please find the story, because I learned about it in a marketing or communications class years ago. They were having a problem with like some sort of like fluid dynamic something with mining or something. And they kept bringing in experts who were experts in physics or mining, and they kept getting the same results. So then this smart guy at 3M was like, how much is this problem costing us? And they were like, $1 million. And they're like, okay. So he built a website. This is early internet. This is how forward thinking this dude was, and how risky, because all of his colleagues were like, do not do this. He essentially put up a website just to expose the database and said, here's 50 problems 3M is having right now. Fully open source, describe the problem, and then put price tags on them. And was like, if you can help us solve this problem, it's worth $50,000. Because he was like, the problem's worth $1 million. $50,000 is a lot. And then, of course, he got answers from like goat farmers or people who crochet or a guy who makes, donuts or whatever. And that's where the advancements came from. So I think that was a business way of this guy saying, if I outsourced problem solving, that would be a really good idea. So he did that. But YouTube is the modern version of that, is you can find things that don't make sense, and that's when they make complete sense. All right, let's get to our first topic today, as I teased in the opener. We won't show the graphic because we're not going to reveal who these people are, Tony, but you and I belong to groups, and we do this. We do this. We voyeuristically watch. And then you do this too. I think I do it is I poke. I'll be like, why is that in the chat? Because I want to know your reasoning. I also want to know I want other people to chime in, right? So describe the interaction, then we'll dig into what we think about it.
Before I do though, you mentioned 3M, you mentioned Post-it notes, and you mentioned things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
It triggered a memory that I had completely forgotten about. Do you guys remember this movie, Romy and Michelle's high school reunion?
That was Phoebe from Friends
Phoebe
and
from Friends.
another
She
actor.
said she invented Post-it notes.
Oh yeah.
It
When she went back
completely.
to high school. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
As soon as you said Post-it notes, I was like, wait, was that a Seinfeld episode? And I Googled it real quick, and then it took me to that.
Who's gonna check you pre-internet, right? Who's gonna check you? We used to do this game where, like, when we would go out with a group of dudes to talk to females, it sometimes would get boring because females don't always want to talk to idiot guys like me. So we would give each other personas. You'd give a friend a name and their job, and then you had to all in be that. So my go-to name, I would always be Chip, and then it would be like, I was a forensic meteorologist, and like, what does that mean? I had to come up with a backstory of what that was. But all right, let's keep going. It's down test.
All right.
Yeah.
So we didn't bring Dave in on this original conversation, so this might be all fresh for him.
It's good.
But I was in one of the Facebook groups last night, and I'm reading, and somebody had asked a question, and as I scroll through, somebody from a state association, right, physical therapy association for a particular state, they said, gosh, I wish I could remember, but somebody had a question about regulation, and somebody had said, call the state. And this person said that they were not a member, but they called the state. And somebody who was a VP of this state organization chimed in and said, something about membership and encouraging membership. And long story short, comes down to, they said they didn't get an answer to their question. And the VP of this state organization, said something. And I was like, well, what happens when people aren't members and they call with questions? And just like what I just shared, it triggered a memory from like 20 years ago. I remember being in Florida, Sarasota. I was not a member of the state organization. I called the state to ask a question about regulation because I was like, I don't know, we're brand new practice. We don't understand a lot of this stuff. I need help. Zero help. And so, to quote, and I'm gonna grab exactly what was said. I just couldn't believe it. I was shocked. I was like, I am a physical therapist. You are the Florida Physical Therapy Association. Are you seriously not going to answer my question? Because I'm not a member of the state organization.
So here, are you looking for that? Do you want me to talk?
I got it. This particular person, I said, what happens when a non-member calls with a question? They said, quote, they are advised of the benefits of membership.
So essentially, hey, I have a question. Are you a member? No. And their response was, well, let me talk to you about this. Let me talk to you about this membership. Now, hold on a second. I can see this from both sides. So I'm going to put myself in the middle. But I think you guys are probably both on the same side, right? So I'm going to put myself back on there. All right. So I can see it from both sides in terms of, so what do you think they should have done? I'll do this in questions and not statements. So what do you think?
And I know Jimmy is a huge fan of organizations, the state-run organizations, the APTA organization. I'm indifferent. I'm in the middle. I don't care. But when I look at this, it's like, this is the idea. This is the mindset. This is the culture of business in 1972. It's like very adverse. It's them against us. We're not going to give away any of our secrets. This is all protected information. And we live in 2024. Every one of us, the three of us, give every single, potential piece of beneficial information we have. I will tell anyone anything to help them. I don't care if they're a customer of mine, a student of mine, whatever. Same thing if a patient called. If a patient called to ask about their low back pain, we would tell them anything they want to know and how to resolve it. And then if they became a client of ours, awesome. If they didn't, even better, because now they have the resources and the information they need.
Hold on a second. So I agree. I'm in the middle. I think there's nuance here. You said if a patient calls, so that's somebody who has a relationship with you. So is that similar to saying if a member calls?
Okay, let's say a prospect. If a prospect calls,
good.
No relationship.
So now let me ask you this. Let's use that same analogy. A prospect calls and they have a quick question. Tony's like, no problem. Let's bang this out. That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that a fair parallel to what happened here? They have a question that we can we can reasonably assume would take less than 5 minutes to answer or to walk through. Okay. What if that person had a question that required the PT or the state association person to do work, to sit down, to look at a bunch of documents and actually give a good practice act? So let's say it was going to be an hour's worth of time. Would that be a fair thing to give away for free? Would you say, yeah, PT in my clinic, go treat that person for an hour because, hey, if that hour, they might be a client for life. Is that a fair, is that a fair thing?
I'm going to say it depends on the value of the exchange here. So in this situation, if I'm calling my local Ohio Physical Therapy Association, and it's going to take an hour consultation, 100% I'm going to pay for it. I'll join the membership. I'll do whatever. But then I look at that too, and I'm like, well, going back to me, I put out thousands of videos that answer questions that would take me longer than a couple minutes over the phone, but don't absolutely require my expertise. And I go back to the APTA website, right? There are so many times where I'm looking for information. They're optimized. They're ranking #1 in Google. I click on the site, I get the first paragraph, and then the rest is behind a paywall. Yeah. And what irks me more than anything is, so then it says join something and it's like free. And then you click and then it's like, oh no, it's free for members. And it drives me crazy. One of these days I will go through, I'll read all of their headlines that are behind a paywall, and I will answer all of those questions and make that information public truly for free.
That is a devious strategy. Dave, I need you to chime in because you haven't yet.
So I had some initial visceral reaction. I'm trying to just cool it down. I'm glad Tony got to, reply first, but my sentiment, I'll say like this comment from Cameron Dennis. So he said the OPTA wouldn't answer his questions. What did I say? Ohio?
Yeah, no, I'm saying it's Ohio.
Yeah. So they wouldn't answer his questions during COVID because he wasn't a member. That specifically is preposterous. Like, okay, maybe you got a question about private practice and they're like, hey, you should kind of be a member. And, there's very experienced people to answer that or whatever. And it takes time. That's specifically the thing about COVID, that just because they already had this approach where they're like, we're not going to provide any resources or help or support or anything unless you're a member. Even something like that, where it's like patient safety, therapist safety, best practices in a time where there was a ton of uncertainty. We didn't know what was going on, what we should do, protective barriers and all this type of stuff going on. And they can't even provide any support, or even at the very least, kind of what Tony was hinting at was, how come any of these APTA chapters, state chapters, whatever, how come, and they probably don't, you guys can correct me if they do, have a YouTube channel answering a lot of these common questions, so that then when, the question of the Kansas, or did we not say the state and I actually just blew it up?
No, whatever.
The state, the chapter, how come they don't have a YouTube channel answering a lot of these common questions to then funnel people into more membership? Because you can build more know, like, and trust with more physical therapists. But I agree 100% with Tony. These blog articles behind a paywall, come on. Like, okay, it's kind of nuanced information. It is valuable to some extent, but it's also like, there's, like Tony said, there's like this adversarial approach. So no wonder there's such low membership, and the APTA in general, from all the different groups and all the different states and all that, have had a challenge with getting physical therapists or even PTAs to pay for membership. And I don't know the number offhand. Maybe Jimmy can ask his buddy Scott Gardner at United Physical Therapy Association what the breakdown is of total members that are APTA members that are physical therapists, PTAs, whatever. And if it's, I don't know, 10 or 20% of the entire nation.
I believe it's a third. I think a third of people are APTA members.
Which, I mean, I have no idea what it is compared to, I don't know, in medicine or chiro or
some associations require it for licensure and PT doesn't, I believe. So you have to be a member of the AMA.
I'm curious, the ones that do not require it, whatever profession, industry, whatever, the ones that don't require it, I'm curious, like, how many of the other ones are around 50% membership or above 50%. But anyway, that my response is the same as Tony's.
Yeah. So I think you both walked right into my trap. And my trap was, I agree with both sides. I am in the middle. Dun, 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 dun. Here's why. I think associations, and this is why I think the people that we talked about the other day, Scott Gardner, like I've been asking them questions and they've been taking it like I'm trying to disagree with them. What I'm trying to do, and I work with associations and organizations, I think they have a problem. They have an identity problem. They don't understand what business they're in. I think everything you're saying is right. I think they are in a 1970s model in a 2024 world where what value do I have from that? And I work with, it gets really uncomfortable sometimes when I sit down with a board of directors, a group of board of directors, and I'm like, and I bring up, and I love me some pyramids. I bring up this pyramid and I go, great, we're going to do an exercise. And the exercise is, you're going to tell me the value you provide. And they go, but we provide networking. And I'm like, okay, where? And they're like, in our organization. And I'm like, but if I'm in Ohio, do I go to the headquarters every day? No, I probably never go to the headquarters. So where's the networking? Well, we connect you with members. Where? We send emails. I'm like, that's not networking. Have you been to Twitter? That they don't need you. So what I'm saying is barriers have been removed, that in the 1980s, there was a tremendous value in being a member because that one newsletter you got quarterly was the only connection you had to what was going on in the world. My friends, it's not that way anymore. It's not that way anymore because individual practitioners have larger YouTube followings that are specifically clinician facing than associations do. So my question is constantly, what business are you actually in? So if you think you're in the gating information business, that if someone calls, don't give them the ICD-10 code. Don't walk them through how to do this. If that's the business you think you're in, you are in trouble because in a couple of years, I got news for you. You're not going to exist. That's an uncomfortable thing to say to people in charge of an organization. But that's why you get paid. I don't get paid to come in here and tell you that you're doing a good job. So I think association, you have to understand what business you're in, because I agree they probably should have given that information because that's one good exposure. Do I expect that person to then flip and become a member that minute? No, because it takes a while, right? You have one good interaction with someone and you buy the car? No, because the relationship is a relationship. That's what business you're in. You're in a relationship business.
So they come to you and they say, Jimmy, tell us what business we're in. What do you say?
You tell me. You're the organization. What? And then I go through, what are your bads and goods? Let's look around the room. In radio, we used to do this all the time. I liked being in radio. It wasn't TV. We had no budget. We had to break open the prize closet and look at what stuff was in there. I got news for you. It wasn't the prize closet at a radio station is not as glamorous as you think it is. But it forced us to look at what we had. I was in radio when iTunes first came out, when streaming first began. I looked at my boss. I'm like, we're in trouble. He goes, understand what business we're in. We're in the companionship business. We're with you all day during your job business, right? So we understood that we didn't just we were the only person with the Pearl Jam CD, because if you sat around and you were like, I want to hear that special Pearl Jam song, the deep cut, you're not going to get it at the radio station. So we tried to understand what business that we're in. I think they're the making me a better clinician business. I think you're in my making sure I'm being a better practitioner business. I think this interaction highlights exactly what business they could be in, but they're not. They're in the membership business. I need you to be in the making Jimmy McKay better business. What are your thoughts on that?
What do you think, Dave?
I just had a little Wi-Fi lag, but I hear it now. I think they need to listen to this. I think they need to consider listening to members and maybe even non-members, as challenging as that might be. They're just not, I don't know. They're not in the business that they think they're in. And right. Maybe
they're in the attention business.
Maybe this type of content, I don't know. I don't know what's ultimately it's, I think how can they evolve? Do they want to evolve? Will they? And as the association or whatever typically will have a challenge to do that. Usually there's committees to oversee committees, and too many
So
bureaucracy.
So
kind of,
Dave, we're
you know,
losing you a little bit. Sorry, Dave, we're losing you a little bit. You're frozen. So I'm catching every couple of words that Dave's thrown. That is a part of their structure. These are volunteer led. Bless their hearts, they're doing one more thing, and the turnover is every few years. So every year or two, it's a course correction, right? So it's good that it's member led, a lot of member driven, member steered, because there are staffs that they do like an analogy where the staff is the back wheel of the bicycle that drives the bike, but the volunteers, the PTs, are the ones in the front wheel of the bicycle, depending on the direction. My pushback or my question is, your PTs, you're the audience, and the audience isn't always the right group to ask for what business we're in. You're the person we're be providing the service for. So tell me how I can be most service. What problems does our potential audience actually have? How do we overserve that? Because I think this interaction is a gate. This was a slam shut the gate when it could have been a hug.
Yeah, I agree. I think about that all the time. I'm like, there isn't a single person involved with any level of the organization that doesn't work hard, you know, and a lot of them are volunteers, and a lot of them are doing the best that they can with the resources they have. I totally acknowledge that. But like for myself, I also acknowledge my own limitations. I'm 49. I'm certainly not old, but I'm certainly not young. I've got other priorities I need to take care of, family, friends, all this kind of stuff, my own business. When I look at, you know, my media business and my clinical business, I'm like, look, there needs to be a younger generation that comes in and replaces me, because I don't have the same connection to 20-year-olds that I do to 50-year-olds. And so part of it is, I do think when I look across the board, I just see a lot of individuals my age who can do amazing things, but I do think we need some younger blood coming in, some younger perspectives coming in. And then I also go back to what is the value exchange that they can deliver for me? I don't think, no matter how much membership goes up, no matter how much money they raise, I don't think they're ever going to have enough money to influence politics, period. So to me, selling me on the idea that another $500 or $1,000 from me is going to get me more political capital, I don't believe that. I don't believe, you know, a lot of the things that I see. I don't think they're an effective lobbying organization, but that's okay. I don't need them to be. So when I look at it, I'm like, what is the return on my investment? I do think all of the information should be free. But then I'm like, all right, I got to do these stupid continuing education credits. I learn every single day. I'm constantly pushing my knowledge. I'm constantly researching. I was listening to Adam Meekins this morning. He has one of the best channels. I don't know if it was on Facebook or YouTube. I think it was YouTube. I love his short form content. He does an amazing job. I'm always reading research. I'm always trying to improve myself. I don't need somebody to tell me I need 24 CEU hours. But if I do need 24 CEU hours, how about my membership delivers me 24 free CEU hours?
Thank you.
You know, like give me some tangible exchange. Go ahead, Jimmy.
All right. So we were close there at the end. So like, I'll just be full disclosure. I get to work with APTA Orthopedics. I see APTA Orthopedics, the largest component of the APTA, and I have been working with them for a couple of years now, and they are turning. Welcome to the dark side. They are now beginning to understand what the power of being connected with 18,000 physical therapists, because that's how many. So there's about 100,000 members in the APTA. 20,000 of them are also self-selected, because you become an APTA member. Then you automatically become a state member. That's linked wherever you live. But then you can be a member of all these different components. And I work with APTA Orthopedics. They are now beginning to say, oh, I think we're beginning to understand this, because in the beginning, Jimmy was just crazy yelling into a microphone. And now they're like, oh, so here's an example. Here's where we just changed a little bit. I'm a member. If I want to become an OCS, if I want to get my OCS, they have this thing called Current Concepts, which essentially is an OCS prep course. And it's developed with leaders in orthopedic PT. How do we get them? They're members. They all want to be connected in some way. Now that we're together, what's the thing I get out of this? What do I get and how do I get it? Right? So now they come together and you're saying, oh, so if I'm going to become an orthopedic PT, should I look outside of the organization? We have the resource, but you understand that this is valuable, and we have to make some money on this. Like, it's not, and they actually don't make a ton of money in terms of margin on this. They provide it as a service that helps to support the organization, but the value of it is so high. And I know this because I asked a lot of people who've taken it to then speak on the value of that, and I record that, and that's their user-generated content advertising. That's the model I think we're in. It's that funnel of know, like, trust that Dave mentioned, which is like, how do we get so many eyeballs on this? So by the time, like Gary Vee says, by the time I ask you to buy my book, you've touched me, you've jabbed me so many times that by the time I've jabbed you so many times, like a give. It's an 800 number. We have a PT standing by 124/7. Jab, 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 jab. By the time I ask you to drop $20 to buy the book with the right hook, you're like, take my money. I think that's the business they need to be in. I think that's the business a lot of us need to be in.
And would you agree that an association is there to serve its members? No.
I think you should. Yes.
Okay.
I
So
think
Say it again, because Dave cut out. The association's there to serve who?
So I think Dave is saying, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's frozen, so I can go ahead and jam words in his mouth. He was saying, do you agree that the association is there to support anybody, members or non-members, I think is where he was going. And I think the answer should be anybody who one of my favorite quotes, I'm not trying to be political here, was said by former President Obama. Somebody asked him in a press conference or something, what would you tell kids to be in the next 10 years? Essentially, I think the person was trying to say, like, what industry is going to be really, vital? What should kids go into college for? So what should they be? But they phrased it, what should they be? And his answer was, be useful.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a ridiculous model. Like, how useful can I be? And then people come back to you. Imagine, do you understand the power of someone subscribing to one of our YouTube channels? They've said, I don't want to lose you in the sea of information, that I am willing to click a button so I don't do that. Costs me nothing. Bull. It costs you attention and time and bandwidth. And what you're saying when you click that is, this is a positive ROI on my part by subscribing. And that's one step closer to whatever business that you're in. I think associations are sitting on a diamond mine of opportunity because they already have a brand. Right? Love them or hate them, you understand the brand or the power or the reach of APTA or whatever organization. I think redefining and having a good hard look in the mirror and asking yourself, what business am I in? And how do I crush that business? But don't try to get paid don't try to get married on the first date, dude. That's obvious. When I say that, I give a whole presentation. I got slides, the whole nine, where I'm like, I'm not married. Jimmy's not married, but I know how it works, right? You meet a girl, you ask her out, you go to coffee, then you ask her to get married. Everybody giggles in the audience when I do that. But then when I say, okay, then I'm like, oh, so here's what it actually works. It's like you meet a girl, go get coffee, maybe dinner, a couple weekends, meet the parents, then you get married. Everybody's like, well, yeah, duh. That's why you're not married, Jimmy. You don't get it. Great. Now I flip all the icons in that timeline to business interactions. I'm like, you meet someone online and you say, buy this or become a member. And then no one laughs. And I start laughing. I'm like, you idiots. It's the same thing. You're trying to get someone to buy in and join a relationship with you on the first interaction. That's just as dumb as asking someone to marry you on the first date. This is a relationship build. That's the business that you're in. How do I overserve that? Hey,
so now let me ask you, Jimmy. You shared a comment, a post, a remark where somebody had complained about the APTA being involved with other businesses, other companies. I remember a couple of years ago, maybe there were sponsored ads and stuff that people didn't agree with. I don't think it matters. I mean, it's just like a pro athlete getting endorsed by Nike. Maybe you don't agree with Nike, but what do you think about that? I
think an organization, and I don't want to just use APTA, but it's obvious, it's obviously an easy one because it comes up a lot because I don't have a problem with it, right? I mean, you see as long as you identify it as an advertisement, right? Which I think in the beginning, a lot of remember there used to be magazine articles and it would look like content, and then the FCC or FTA, I think it was the FTA, said you have to identify this as an advertisement if it's an advertising placement. And I dealt with this a lot in radio. because record companies would come in and, I mean, back in the radio days of like the movie Spinal Tap, they'd walk in and they'd be like, I'll buy you a TV if you play my new crappy record. And what they're saying there with the FCC is like, you can't do pay for play, right? Unless you identify we're going to play the 30 seconds of a clip of a song as an advertisement. So I think as long as it's delineated, like here's an organization, here's an advertiser that values your attention as a member so much that they are paying to be in front of it. But you still get to decide whether or not you're going to buy into that. Now, I think emotion gets tied into it because I won't say, I'm not going to say who exactly this thing that I shared with you, right? I think the emotion comes into it when people are like, they're my competitor. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but they're your competitor 365, 24/7. So why are you upset? Are you upset they're doing it? Or are you upset they're doing it on a larger scale than you?
Right.
Figure out what you're actually upset at. Are you upset that an organization is accepting a partnership? Or are you doing it? Are you angry because they're doing it and you view them as your competitor? Ask what you're actually upset about.
And let's take a left turn on that, because when I see these remarks all the time, Mill, air quotes, Mill, physical therapy, corporate physical therapy. It's one of those things that just drives me crazy, because I understand, like Michael Derry, he's here, Scott's here from Health Mention. Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. You guys are passionate. I know both of you. I watch what you guys post. You care so much about what you do, how you do it. It's so important to you. But like most things, there's a market for different consumers. And so if Toyota or Honda or any of these car companies was building each car from scratch with a single person, one craftsman designing everything originally, that car is unaffordable to the masses. And so when we look at a physical therapy clinic that has multiple locations, that's seeing relatively higher volume than small individual providers are seeing, it gets a bad label. But the fact is, if they weren't delivering what the consumer wants, the consumer would not go there. Nobody is being forced to go to those places. Plus, most of us, my clinic, we couldn't handle the capacity of all of the people. We already, not me, but others, already have long wait times. They're not getting to all the patients they need. They don't have the staff. They don't have the resources, the volume. I wish we could get away from this idea that we label a higher volume clinic as a mill. It's just a different delivery method.
I asked that question a while ago, and that you see the visceral emotion. You see the visceral emotion in the texts. Yeah. I said, okay, so let's pretend you were explaining what a PT mill is versus not a PT mill, right? What's the line? And people were coming in with exact numbers. If you see more than 21 patients a day, I'm like, so 22 is no, but 20 is okay. Got it. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, I'm gonna write that down. If you're seeing more than one patient at a time, or if it's not one-on-one care for an hour, you want to know the fastest way to figure out what someone's business model is? Ask them what the crappy model is. Then you'll say, well, what's not that? They'll describe their own model.
Right.
But you and I believe, are agreeing on this. It sounds like good care is decided not by you. Good care is decided by the person. So I love this line by, I think this was Donald Miller. Probably not. I'm good with quotes, but not about who said them. You determine the cost. Audience determines the value. You do not you do not get to decide how valuable you are. That is what I do as the audience. You can try to communicate what you think you're valuable, how you are valuable, and what you think they might value, but they decide. You determine cost, I determine value. That's how it works, my friends. Also, I'll say I worked for a guy who, when I started there, was very excited that I had a background in communications, and I was happy to oblige. And he would write Facebook posts that were like longer than several arms. I'd walk in the morning, new PT, ready to see my first patient, and he'd be like, come here, I want you to review this. And essentially the entire block of text would be him raging against PT mills. And I read it, and he said, what do you think I should do? He was looking for like punch up the headline, put in a graphic. And I said, do you feel better that you've written it? Yes. Great. Delete it. And he was like, but people need to be educated to understand that we provide one-on-one. You've heard this before. Yeah. And they provide crap. And I gave him the analogy that if you were trying to get a girl's phone number at a bar, where would you spend more of your time? Talking about the guy down the bar and why he sucks? You shouldn't take that. You shouldn't take that guy's number. He sucks. He's this, he's not this, he's not this. Would you spend a majority of your time talking about yourself? I do this, I do this, I do this. And I said, what would you spend your time on? Well, they need to be, no, you only get to answer one of two. And he's like, I guess in that analogy, myself. And I said, right. But the correct answer is actually the third answer I didn't give you. Talk about the girl. I learned this the hard way. Freshman and sophomore year, I got a lot of first dates, not a whole lot of second dates. First dates were like Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. Meet a girl, quick line. You want to talk tomorrow? Let's go out next week. Bam, got the first date. Second date's long form content. And in freshman and sophomore year, Jimmy was like, I can't wait to tell them how smart I am. And I was the captain of the high school hockey team. And I did this and I did no second date. Junior and senior year, when someone clued me in, don't talk about you. Don't talk about the guy down the bar they shouldn't go out with. Ask them questions about themselves. And when they leave, their feeling is, wow, he really wanted to get to know me. Why are you spending time talking about a PT mill? Why are you spending time talking about yourself? Talk about them, your potential partner, patient, client, whatever the hell you want to figure it out. And you'll have a whole lot more second dates.
Which isn't that exactly what great therapists do in an initial evaluation? You see the therapist that just talks about themselves and how great they are on their education and their credentials and talks about all of this other stuff. Patient never comes back. But then you have the therapist who sits there quietly and listens and asks a couple directed questions, and they have a patient for life. You know, real quick, Jamal is on here asking if we are live, asking us to raise our hand. Jamal, I don't know if you're real or a bot, but yes, this is live. Hey, let's talk about something you and I have been doing more of lately. These tech reviews, equipment reviews, stuff like that. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking you're good at this. I'm thinking that here's why I haven't done more of them. Because when I got asked to do a tech review, I then ran to YouTube, saw a bunch, and then decided to try to copy their format because I was like, that's what you're supposed to do. But I know what Tony's going to tell me is like, you need to do it however you would do it. Right. So I haven't done more because of my own fear. But this is a brilliant marketing strategy for tech companies, right? This used to happen a lot in radio too. People would be like, hey, we have a new company in town. Let's send over food to the radio station. Brilliant, because I'm going to eat it. Then I'm going to walk in the studio and be like, hey, man, thanks to Steve's Pizza. Their stuff's great. They're on Market Street. Go get them. I think it's great. I think it's a really great way to, because that's what people want, right? I liked Amazon's feature where you get to look at the reviews and you see all the 5-star reviews, and they installed the button where you could see all the 1-star reviews. And you look at that, but you're like, why are they bitching? Is it a reasonable bitch or not? So I think they're brilliant. You've done a bunch of these. Why did you start and why do you continue?
Yeah. Again, this is low hanging fruit. This is like the easiest thing. This was years ago. I remember the first time a company sent me a product and they were like, hey, take a look at this. Let me know what you think. To give people context, basically every single marketing department, every single company, it started small. Now all the big ones, they're looking for influencers. They're looking for people that have even a small community, 100 subscribers, you know, just any kind of reach, to put their products out there, put their products in their user's hand. And so user generated content, UGC, it's really growing in popularity. So I've got 5 or 6 products sitting on my desk at the clinic almost at any given time. I don't do videos on all of them. I just don't, partly because they're not great products. You know, I remember one that stands out to me. It was a suction cup device, just like regular cupping, that also included eStim. I was like, this is awesome. This will be so much fun. I'll totally do it. I don't care. You know, yes, it's placebo. I'll explain it's placebo. That's fine. The product just didn't work. So I didn't release any videos on the product.
So hold on a second. Now I want to go to the dark side. Shouldn't you have to make sure your audience was safe from a thing you didn't think was good?
This is true. This is true. I hadn't considered that side of it, and then I just got so busy.
That's why a
But
lot will say, like, I don't take any money for this because then I don't owe the company something. I'm doing this, and then you have to understand like what you're. Do you know MK Marquis Brownlee, MKB? He got into a big thing because he trashed something. He trashed something, and people were like, "You're just doing that for views." And I was like, "But he's not beholden. This isn't an ad. He's doing a review, and if you give him something he doesn't like, everything's opinion."
Right.
He sort of took it upon himself, whether he was doing it right maliciously or not. He trashed a thing, and people were like, "You're not supposed to do that. You're only supposed to just do stuff I like." That's not a review. That's an ad. We've now crossed back over into ad.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And truthfully, I've considered, I had started a couple product review channels that were dedicated product review channels. They fell off the rails. I just never kept up with them. My intent there, and I've done this multiple times where I don't want a free product. I will buy the product. I will spend my own money because I want to give an objective, non-biased opinion of the product. So usually in my videos, I'll always say like, this was given to me, this was gifted to me, or I purchased this. And so historically, what I've always done across multiple channels is when I buy the product, if I like the product, I will review the product. No compensation from the company for those videos. And then in other videos, they reach out, they send me the product for free. If they want to buy licensing and rights to the video, we negotiate a rate for that. But I always disclose that this is a paid product review, paid product endorsement.
I was going to say that. Say it up front. I like the comment that just came in. Who is that? Scott? Is his name Scott?
Yeah, Scott.
Self-mention. I like people who do the opposite. Scott is mentioning, instead of doing the best of content, do the worst of content. Do you know where the best ideas for headlines or concepts or formats come from? We all have to buy food. A lot of us buy it from a supermarket. Look at the magazines. We can make fun of supermarket checkout magazines all day, but they understand how to gain the first, second, or two of attention, and that is not a small thing. So if you say like 6 steps to a summer bod and you put that article out in, March or February, understand their pain point. A pain point in terms of worst of or best of content, both, they're just two sides of the same coin, is I'm afraid of investing in something and it not do. We've all been that. I bought this thing, it's going to revolutionize my life, and it didn't. And then you look at it on the countertop and you're like, oh, if only, and then you have a friend come in 6 months later. Oh, you bought that? I bought that too. It sucked. Where the hell were you 6 months ago? You could have saved me $50 and 3 hours of pain. That's valuable. That is terribly, terribly valuable.
So that's what somebody should do. Like Scott or somebody watching should create a dedicated channel to, protect the consumer, avoid useless products. Now, Consumer Reports, you guys remember that grew huge. That was, I think they got acquired. I remember watching an interview talking about Consumer Reports. Again, that was one of those things that went behind a paywall. So my family had an account. You would have to log in. It was like $100 a year membership, and you had access to unbiased reviews because the product companies weren't paying the reviewers. This was totally impartial.
So I don't think this is simple, but let's review Consumer Review's business model. Their business model, if they were trying to get rich quick, would be, hey, cell phone case companies, we're going to contact the top 100 and we're going to say it's $1,000 to be in our magazine, and we're going to review it. And if you got all 100, you make $100,000, right? But they understood what their business model was. Their business model was, I don't want to be a client. I don't want 100 clients that are cell phone cases. I want to have 1 million readers. So my business is credibility, attention, reach, knowledge. I'm preventing you from making a mistake. I'm helping you make a good decision. They understood that. It's subtle, but it's not different. It's subtle, but it's important, right? This goes back to the first conversation we had about associations. I don't think you're in the membership business. I think that's how you might generate income. And again, like the memberships, like fees for these are not huge, right? But it doesn't have to be even $1 if I don't feel like it's a good exchange. And I don't know if we've talked about this, but there's 3 types of exchanges. There's a negative exchange. Negative exchange we've all experienced. We're going to play a role play. Tony, you just went to a crappy movie. Okay. Hey, Tony, you went to that movie last night. How was it?
Oh, it was horrible. It was so boring.
Oh my God, really? Like, was if a phrase a lot of times we'll hear like, that's 2 hours of my life I'm never going to get back.
Yeah.
And 15. Notice that people say it's not $15 or $30 that I'm never going to get back. It's 2 hours of my life I'm never going to get back. Man, I wasted time. More valuable. So that's a negative exchange. That's type 1. Type 2, we're both baseball fans. Dave's a baseball fan, but he's having Wi-Fi issues. Is let's say you go to a movie and it's mayonnaise. It's Jay Leno, I call it. It's like, how was the movie? It's a baseball. It's the equivalent of tie goes to the runner. Shortstop makes a great play, throws it over the first baseman. Runner touches the base at the same time the ball hits the glove. Tie, runner's safe. That's an even exchange. Except it doesn't feel even because you're on defense. You got the ball there as a tie. How come I don't get half it out? I don't know. That's the second type of exchange. That's a neutral exchange. That's, in my book, not to knock Hellman's. That's warm mayonnaise. Jay Leno. There's a third type of exchange. This is the only type of exchange you should ever be trying to bring to a customer or a client or a non-client, a potential client. And that is an exchange of abundance. That is, Tony, role play again. You went to a movie last night and it blew first time you went to see Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, right? In the theaters 25 years ago. Tony, went to a movie last night, Romeo and Michelle's. How was it, man?
It was amazing. I laughed my head off. It was the best 2 hours of my life.
I would go again, all those different things. That is an exchange of abundance. How do you do that? So if we're putting a bow, if we're going full circle on this episode, I know it's counterintuitive if you're an association or a business or a solo practitioner or somebody who works at a big giant company. It's counterproductive if you're like, well, if you want me to do the thing, you have to pay. And that's when I begin doing that. I understand that. That is how it used to work. It doesn't work that way anymore because now that we've defined the exchanges, that wasn't mayonnaise, right? That person, we don't write about mayonnaise. On Yelp, we don't never write about mayonnaise. We sometimes write about exchanges of abundance, but hot damn, do we always write about negative exchanges? Damn right we do. That was an opportunity to get that was really great. That was Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion. Like, oh my God, I'm not even a member and they answered my question, right?
Right.
But it comes from understanding what business you're actually in and what as an employee or a member, what you're expected to provide. I'm not expecting to provide answers. I want you to, how can I overserve this in this moment?
So as a practice owner myself, I think about that all the time. I'm like, how do I deliver $1,000 of value for $100 of cash? How do I over deliver on the experience, over deliver on the expectation? I want you to think about what you would say, but I know for me, I try to understand what's the biggest resistance to somebody coming into the clinic. Most of the time it's fear of cost. Most of the time they have no idea what it's going to cost.
Right.
Fear of pain. They're already in pain. They don't want to get into more pain and they think they're going to come in and work out and, do things that are going to hurt. And it's just the time commitment, it's I've got to reserve this time and I got to get to the appointment and I've got time before and time after and all of this stuff. So I can't deliver $1,000 of cash value because it's not that kind of exchange. It's not business to business. It's business to consumer. So I focus on over delivering on basically those three expectations. I completely wipe away any fear of cost before they ever come in the door. I let them know if there's going to be a cost, this is the exact cost that's going to be. I guarantee it will never be more than this. It might be less. That is a system that we put in place from the first day we opened our clinic. From a fear of pain perspective, my conversation is always, look, you're barely going to do anything. We're not here to make you worse. The whole goal of today's session is for me to better understand what are the challenges you're dealing with and help you figure out a way to get to your goals. And it does not increase your pain. And then the last one is the convenience aspect, and convenience was one of our core principles when we started the business. And it's still a core principle today. How can I make this as easy as possible for you? You know, do you need extra hours? Do you need shorter sessions? What do you need? Do you need me to eliminate an attendance policy? So if you get a last minute, you know, change in your schedule, you can cancel and you don't have to pay a penalty. I do everything. I bend over backward to hit those pain points, eliminate that friction. That's where I can over deliver. What do you see as something that people watching right now have the potential to deliver on the expectation for their clients?
Well, you did Tony's 3 fears for a patient, right? So I'll do a different one. I'll do the 3. Let's live do this. The 3 fears for membership. I think the 3 fears for membership are cost, right?
Yeah.
But it's not cost. So I'm going to wipe that. It's not cost, because it's like, well, I should say APTA is about $500, and then another section or component is like 50. I think private practice is like 100. So we're talking about a difference between 20% add-on, an upsell, right? I think the question is, I don't understand what I get. So I'm confused at what I'm buying. Therefore, I do one of 3 things. I don't buy, I buy, and I don't utilize it, and I'm confused. So in a year, when it comes up to renew, I just don't, right? Or there are some people who are buying, and I call these like, these are big opportunities. There are people who become members of associations because of hope. They're buying and they're like, I think it's sort of ambiguous. I think I know what I'm getting. And if I just keep membership, if I keep supporting, that's where I am, man. I'm a joiner. I like to be around people and I like to figure stuff out. There are people that are like diehard hopefuls. They want to belong. And this is not a trite value. This is badge value. This is what you get to wear on your jersey. Like, why am I wearing Steve Gleason's jersey, by the way, who just won the Arthur Ashe Award for Courage at the ESPYs this year? We should do a whole episode on Steve. Dude's a legend. But I think people aren't. I think if you confuse them, you lose them. And it's not true just because it rhymes. So I think organizations, you sound like you have a very clear understanding of what you're actually providing. Right? So, sorry, I get a phone call. I think you clearly understand what you're providing, and then you understand their objection, and then you communicate that it's not that. Right? I think associations, I think big companies also fall into this trap. Look at some of the major, PT organizations, and they fall into the trap because a lot of times they're run by marketers looking at PTs going, I need to talk about degrees and certifications. They fall into that trap a lot as well. The people who do it well talk about me, and they get a lot more. Anybody can get a first date. It's slick to get a first date. You can get quick, right? It's that second date. It's that 15th date. It's that marriage. I'm still trying to figure that one out, but I'm working on it, right?
Talking just before we wrap up, I made a connection here. So when I think of my patient, I say this a lot. Many of my patients would not come if they were paying out of pocket themselves, but because the insurance company is paying, they will come because it's on somebody else's dime. Now you can look at that and say, well, they already paid the insurance premium, so it is them paying, whatever. But when I think about membership, I think about APTA, I think about this value exchange and all of this. I won't mention the company, but we've shared screenshots of companies that are advertising you get a free APTA membership when you work for this company. And so when I look at that, it's a very similar dynamic to, okay, so the therapist gets the perceived value of the membership for free. It's being paid by someone else, so it's on somebody else's dime. Right. I do think there's a huge value there. The company gets to advertise that we're supporting the professional organization and we're doing our part to push the profession forward. The therapist gets the value of the membership without paying out of pocket for it. It kind of goes both ways there. But again, I don't know, and I'm completely ignorant, if the APTA is doing anything to incentivize these businesses to give paid memberships to their staff. I remember back 20 years ago when we were looking at this, they did not. So every team member I brought on, I had to pay the full APTA membership and whatever else. But I do think if they're not, that would be a huge opportunity to give those employers the opportunity to say, hey, we're supporting the profession.
So okay. So I don't know because I don't work for APTA, but I know this has been discussed multiple times, which is like, hey, if I'm a huge organization, like you got to help me out here. Like This isn't just I'm big, give me a discount. This is like, this is cost prohibitive. Like, I'd like to do it, right? Imagine like you overserve some young budding PT and then he grows up to be a CEO. He builds a company to have 1,000 clinics and he's still pro APT. He's like, freaking love you guys. I have 4,000 PTs. I'd love to do that. But like, watch this math. Like, so I think a volume thing is something, and again, I know it's been discussed, so it might actually be in play or already being done. The second part of that coin, though, needs to be, you got me into Disney World, right? You're that random PT who starts working for a big company in Ohio. Now I'm a member. You have 12 months to earn that person's respect, admiration, value. This is Amazon Prime. I love asking a room full of people if they have Amazon Prime, because everybody's hand goes up. And then I say, I need an exact dollar amount of how much you paid for Amazon Prime last year. And I get what's called rhubarb. Have you ever heard of rhubarb?
No. I mean, I know the vegetable.
So here's what rhubarb is. I was taught this by a PT professor. Rhubarb is, if you're a background actor in like a restaurant scene, you're the person at another table, they teach you to just repeat the word rhubarb, because that rhubarb looks like it's got a bunch of random syllables. I don't know, but that's the industry term. Just keep repeating. Don't make up a conversation with the other background actor. Just say rhubarb back to each other. That's what they do, right? So when I ask a room full of people who has Amazon Prime, everybody raises their hand. When I say how much, I need an exact dollar amount within $10 of how much you paid for Amazon Prime last year, and I get rhubarb. Right? Do you want to know why that is? Because Amazon overloads on value to the point when you don't care how much it costs. You understand you're getting so much more that you will take my Amazon Prime account out of my cold, dead hands. So in this situation, if you have a company willing to pay for APT membership or membership to anything, an app, a platform, something to use, you didn't win as the app or the association. You did not win there. You have a chance to now exchange of abundance to earn that person's undying loyalty. Put yourself in that situation. If I have a chance of losing that person, because Tony, what do we know about the cost of gaining a new customer or retaining an existing customer? Gaining a customer is infinitely more expensive than retaining and overserving an existing customer. Put yourself in that person's shoes. Have the boldness to say, I understand why they left. We failed them. And then how do we not fail the next 1,000 that we're going to get? And I think a lot of times people are stuck in this model of they don't understand what business they are or they're being expected to be in. And I think they're in the relationship business, not the membership business.
Yeah. Yeah. Parting shots. What do you got?
Well, we got to save. We were going to talk about something else in terms of signage. So front tees. We'll talk about signage. You and Dave vehemently disagree. And I love when you do that because I get to see two different opinions and then I get to form, wait for it, my own, or I get to have a dynamic opinion, which is like, well, I agree with. All right. So we'll talk about signage and building a brand. Parting shots is, if you were going to do an exercise, I would suggest sit down and ask yourself, if you had to erase the dry erase board of everything that you know right now, and we have a pretty diverse audience, right? Physical therapists, PTAs, business owners, people who work for other businesses. Doesn't matter. Just because you work for another business does not mean that you are not a brand, you are an entrepreneur, or you could be an entrepreneur. Ask yourself what business you're actually in, and then figure out how to be so damn good at that people tell their friends and their grandmothers about you so that you are overloaded. That's what business are you actually in? And your answer cannot be physical therapy. Physical therapy is a how, not a what or a why. I don't want to know what you're doing or why you're doing it, right? I want to know what business are you actually in, not how you deliver that. You don't deliver it via physical therapy. You deliver an experience, my friends. That's the business you're in. And I'd love to hear from it. So DM, comment, whatever. We could do a whole episode on people listening to this prompt and then, okay, I did that introspection, and then sharing or doing video clips or bringing them in live. We could do a whole 60 minutes on, I did that, thought about it for a week, and then I changed my mind. The two biggest compliments people can give me, not just willy-nilly, I want to earn them. I never thought about that, which says that me and Tony and Dave said something or brought something up that you'd never thought about before. And the even slight better compliment is, I never thought about that that way, which means we talked about something you have thought about a lot, and we gave you a different way to look at it. I'm not trying to here to change your mind. I want to show you different perspectives. So ask yourself what business you're in. That's my parting shot.
I love it. I love it. And I would say for me, parting shot, the best way to really understand if you're delivering an excess in value, and it could be a two-sided direction. I give you $10, you clean my gutters. The gutter cleaning is worth more than the $10 is to me. The $10 to you is worth more than the time to clean my gutters. Like totally an excess in value on both sides. The best way to judge if that's happening is if they come back, if they stay. If the member stays a year and then renews their membership, you have exceeded their expectation and value. People hate the way I treat patients. People hate a lot of the things that I say that I do in my clinic. I don't care what people think. What tells me I'm doing the right thing is that if you look at my caseload, 70% of more of them have been patients before that are coming back for different conditions because they love what we do and they love how we do it. That's what tells me my team is doing an amazing job. So that's how I judge performance.
Yeah. If you do anything around Medicare billing, make sure you subscribe to Tony's YouTube channel, Learn Medicare Billing. That's how you find it. How many people are interacting there? And the Facebook group that goes along with it?
The channel has almost 10,000. I can't wait to pass 10,000 subscribers. The Facebook group has like 8,000 members, super active.
You charge people for answers, right?
That's right.
Questions.
No, I don't.
That's the whole idea, people. That's the whole idea. If you want an answer, come to people who are experts about it. Learn Medicare Billing. Dave Kittle, the Dave Kittle Show. Dave's having some Wi-Fi issues. I can almost hear Dave in the city murdering someone on the phone, being like, "I pay for Wi-Fi. This is my damn business, and my Wi-Fi is coming out." So Dave, we'll have you back on Tuesday as well. I'm Jimmy McKay. I changed the tagline to my show. I want your thoughts real quick. It used to be your profession, physical therapy, great physical therapy conversations on tap.
Yeah.
I now say it's the podcast that makes physical therapists have fun and learn stuff.
I love it.
I like that one better. All right. Find me at PT Pinecast. We will see you the same time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. See ya.